Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Healthcare technology is a driving force with $265 billion in annual spending. Yet, 76% of clinicians report disruptions in their workflow. How can we bridge this gap effectively? Successful technology implementation hinges on merging clinical expertise with IT strategy. This synergy ensures that healthcare systems are both efficient and effective, minimizing disruptions and enhancing patient care. With 25 years in healthcare, Jodi Long understands the power of strategic technology deployment. Our 3-tier implementation framework reduced documentation time by 30% and eliminated dangerous workarounds, highlighting the impact of thoughtful integration. Today's healthcare leaders face significant challenges, including cybersecurity risks, system integration, workflow optimization, and artificial intelligence implementation. Addressing these requires a blend of technical expertise and clinical understanding. We're committed to building pipelines for tomorrow's healthcare IT leaders, ensuring they are equipped to tackle these challenges and drive innovation in the industry. Join Jodi Long this February at HIMSS South Florida's Women in IT event. Stream the full episode on 5-Star BDM. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from industry leaders.
And that's what we have to start changing, is we can't expect somebody to be a subject matter expert in everything just so that they can get a leadership title. That's not what we're here to do, right? Like, some people are born leaders, they could become great leaders, and I think that we have to look at that and say, we can always teach them what we need them to know, but if they have a knack to be able to lead and get people to do things in very hard and difficult times, and they can create calm out of chaos, they're a leader.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2025. This is Grant McGaugh on the Follow Brand Podcast. First of all, we have a native Floridian as one of our guests. You don't get that all the time. We're going to kick this year off the right way. She is a wonderful person. She has been in healthcare for a number of years, and she's very passionate around it. And she is going to be one of our featured speakers at the HIMSS South Florida chapter Women in IT event in February at Nova Southeastern University, and I wanted to give my audience just a little bit of familiarity on who Jodi Long is, why it's important for all of us to tune in, not only to this podcast, but to join us in February around this particular event. So, Jodi, you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Grant. Hi, I'm Jodi Long. I'm from Florida, currently live in Orlando, Florida. Been in nursing since 1997, so I like to tell everybody I started when I was 10. But not really. But I have been in nursing since right out of high school. I really wanted to be part of that community. I have a blended family. We have 7 kids, my husband and I together, 2 cats and a dog, because you always have to fill up the house with everything else. And we are very blessed to have the opportunity to provide and be part of our community here as well in Orlando.
Well, that's a story. I mean, when you say, that's a lot of individuals and people. As you are a caregiver, I can see why you fit, that's a beautiful family. It's a beautiful family, right? So let's jump in. I want to talk to you. I mean, that's 1997 nursing. This is 2025 now. What is the most impactful changes that you have seen over that span of time?
Wow. So I would have to say technology has been the most impactful. I started nursing when we were still writing on paper. I was a CNA, a certified nursing assistant, and I worked in a long-term care facility and then worked in a hospital as well as a CNA. And everything was on paper, right? I remember, when I was even a little bit younger than that, going into the hospital to visit my relatives where people are still smoking at the nurses station, right? So I started nursing when there wasn't a lot of technology that helped you really with your workflow. And I would say over the years, that's been a really big impact to how healthcare is, providing care to patients and to family members. And it's made it more efficient. Sometimes there are a lot of barriers there, right? But it has made it more efficient for the providers, for the patients, for the clinicians, and then looking at the outcomes of it. So all the way from electronic health records to IV pumps to how we're really looking at how we're doing surgery, none of this was really around back then. And so it has really allowed us to be more safe and provide safer care, but also more efficient care as well.
Technology, game changing, right? Before the Affordable Care Act came out, meaningful use, and no one was doing electronic health records at scale. But then you had to make those changes. And I'm sure this is the thing. That's what I've learned. I've been in information technology for 25 years. And there's one thing to change, technological changes within a business. But when you're in a profession like healthcare, life-saving, seconds matter, disruption is not something that you want. So you have a fine-tuned process that you're going through when you're dealing with patients, especially critical care, urgent care, things of that nature. And then you bring in a technology solution. Now, we kind of talked about this a little bit even earlier, tech is great when it works. It's wonderful. But if it doesn't work, there's some kind of glitch or anything like that, it can be a real struggle, right? There's friction. Let me ask you this point blank question. Have you found that it's been more friction because of technology, or is it frictionless in your world?
That's kind of a double-edged sword, right, Grant? Because it does add more friction, but in the end, it makes it easier on the patient and on other people, right? And when I say other people, that can be from your payers, certain providers. But for the bedside clinician, it adds more friction. And I'll say this as gingerly as possible, but I'll be very open about it. I think in the clinical environment, they teach you how to be a clinician first. This is doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses, CNAs. They teach you how to be a clinician first. And you have to do that without technology, because what happens if technology goes down, right? You still have to take care of that person in front of you. So you have to learn how to be a medical provider without technology. And then now you have to layer in all of this technology that's disparate. It doesn't integrate together. You're taking information from one system, trying to put it in another. And then now that impacts and adds friction to your workflow, because you're trying to be a medical provider and a clinical provider. And now you're looking at, okay, now I have to let's do vital signs, very basic. Here's a machine that's doing the vital signs. I can push it into the electronic health record, right? There is a way that you can do that. You have to integrate it. Or I can take the vitals and now I have to manually enter them, right? And so that everybody else on the care team can see those vital signs. And everybody needs to understand what's going on with the patient. But now that is another added step that I have to do as a clinician, right? So it just depends on how it's built, which is really where my passion came from, to become involved in information technology and these kinds of health systems. Because like I told you before, there's two currents in my life. What has drove me to be where I'm at today is unburdening the bedside provider and reducing friction, right? So that's like one of my favorite words is friction, because it can be anything that can cause friction for a provider or a patient that we really need to look at, right? And how do we make that less? And so that is why I got into this, is how, as a clinician, can I make it better? How can we build these models or build these solutions from the beginning with clinical input, so it's not something that is causing more burden on them as they're using them at the bedside, but allows us to provide clinical care so that there's better outcomes for the patients and for us as providers, right? Because we all know there's a workforce shortage going on with providers, physicians, and nurses. How do we make this better so we're not burning us out as well?
Now let's unpack that just a little bit, because you're into a sweet spot here, and I know that my audience is tuning in because they say, you know what, Jodi, she's no nonsense. She's speaking from experience. Yeah. Can you give me two examples? Meaning they don't have to be long-winded, but two examples of where technology was helpful in the work of either saving a life or making a better patient outcome, and an example where technology was a hindrance.
Okay. Well, I can say it can be the same example, right? But I will I will go with two different ones. So where it's made, our work easier is actually, I'm gonna probably just use the same one, is the electronic health record. Having a place, so before, when it was all paper, there was these huge charts that you had to flip through and try to understand and try to put the clinical picture together. And so having an electronic health record where things go into a system that now I can be in one part of a hospital, a provider or doctor could be in another part of the hospital, a respiratory therapist can be another part, and we can all document on the same patient to try and figure out what's going on with them, right? We can all look at the same information, we can understand what's going on, we can get the clinical picture. And before that, you couldn't, right? You just had this big clunky paper chart. However, that's also the hindrance, right? Because now as a patient, if I'm in one hospital or health system and I want to go to another hospital or health system, my records don't follow me. Now people will say, well, there's Epic Care everywhere, and there's all of these other things that now are supposed in health information exchanges where that information flows. As a clinician, I can tell you, it's not that easy, right? Like you're still having to dig, you're still having to look for information. And so a lot of that can be very burdensome on the patient, right? So now they're trying to remember everything. What if you come in obtunded, right? Or you're in a coma? Like you can't dispel all the information, right? But what if we could have it all flow easier and have that integration to where that information comes in, it would be a lot easier for the patients and the providers for more efficient care.
tend to operate more in the vein of what are we doing as an enterprise, as an organization around our goals and our strategy, taking that first, and then looking more broadly across that stack to say, okay, where do we have gaps in the technologies that exist today? But more importantly, where do we have gaps in what we seek to achieve where technology is not going to be as efficient or as adequate as is necessary to meet those targets? So passionate about this space. And again, I've had the great fortune to have had some wonderful mentors and leaders in my time that I've learned so very much from. And I really seek to do the same and to give that back. I love mentoring and seeing people grow. Building those high performing teams is where I really find my greatest value and contribution.
Well, look, I think mis and disinformation affects the whole industry, from the life sciences space, the med device space, the payer provider space. I think if we all tackle it together, there are ways to partner with life science companies, med tech companies, and patient advocacy groups, right? Because it does help. It does help in terms of patients being aware there are treatments, funny names being made mainstream. One of the things we saw during COVID was people, knowing the name of vaccines. That never had occurred before, right? Did you get the Pfizer shot? Did you get the J&J shot? Right? That was kind of funny, humorous for doctors because no one's ever asked us that before, right? It was just the flu shot before. And so in some ways it does raise awareness. In some ways it raises education, but it always is the right balance and the right partnership. And I'll give you a simple example. So as a rheumatologist, we give some pretty complicated biologics, and there are a lot of side effects. So when the commercials say, liver disease, renal disease, and they narrate it out, it's the truth. But by having that introduced to my patient in tandem with me, then we talk about it, and I'm able to say, look, the reality is there are side effects to this drug, just like there are to Tylenol, by the way, if you look at the side effects of Tylenol. But when managed correctly, when we partner together, when we do blood work regularly, when we dose things correctly, when we monitor your symptoms, those are unlikely. The risk benefit in medicine, we always weigh the risk and the benefit. There's always risk. You cross the street, there's a risk, right? But the benefit is you get somewhere, you're going somewhere. And if you're mindful, right? Simple analogy, you look left, you look right, you look left again, you make the dash. It's unlikely, right? You're going to have that risk. So that's the important piece, is how do we actually all still empower the patient-physician relationships. And so I think there is a role for life science companies, med device companies to empower that relationship. It really comes down to that. Same with the technology. I'll say it again. If you are not getting between the doctor and the patient, you keep the humanity in the center. And the more you can take all of the other inefficiencies in the background away, that's the key. Those are always going to be the strategies, the technology strategies that work. Those are always going to be the mis and disinformation strategies that work. And we just have to get back to basics in many ways.
Wow, great example. Great example of showing the good and the bad, things that we need to do to get better. Because again, technology is great when it works. Very good. I always look at it as two different windows when I'm looking at deploying a technology solution, meaning if you're looking to collapse the windows of time, you need to do something quicker. It's a great tool. It's fantastic. Hey, if we've done this better, or we had this information, just seconds before, a minute before, whatever it is, or decision-making support, that's wonderful. Also, that's that communication layer. So collapsing the windows of time, then having better communication. Technology is fantastic for communication. So many different ways you can communicate across those windows of time. You can do it at lightning speed. I love it. Now, you gave me a great example around it. Now, you're also part of the Florida Nursing Association. Tell us a little bit about that association and what it's what's it for and how that has helped you in your career journey.
Yeah, I am a huge advocate of people being part of their professional organizations, of what your career is. or what your goal career is, right? Like I mentor for American Nurses Association and for HIMSS as well, for people who are getting into this space. So Florida Nurses Association is the state-run nursing association that's part of American Nurses Association. So I am a member, and I've been a member for, oh gosh, I couldn't even tell you how long. So it's been a while because, I believe in professional organizations for your growth, for your development. As healthcare providers, we are lifelong learners. Things come at us and change every day. And so we always have to stay up on the, evidence-based practices. What is the best practices that we need to be doing? How do we not only protect ourselves, but protect our patients? Florida Nurses Association helps guide that for the state of Florida and for the nurses that are in Florida. They're very involved in advocacy and legislation, looking at, special interest groups to figure out what is going on in the healthcare community and how can we best support the nurses who are working in Florida and the work that they do.
This is important, very important, because everybody was aware of the nursing shortage. You kind of alluded to that earlier. There was a lot going around in the COVID time frame. There's traveling nurses. There's just a lot of change occurring. And I want to talk about leadership in nursing, and not just in nursing itself, but in the healthcare profession, because I see the nursing profession is heavily female dominated. Am I right?
Correct. Yes.
Right.
I think the last statistic was like 70%, around 70% are female.
70%, right? Of that 70%, and you have to be totally accurate, but think about this. How many are actually leaders in leadership in healthcare or hospital policy government?
I would say probably less than 20% of that. And it depends on what kind of leadership you're looking at, right? If you're talking about on the units as a charge nurse, it's higher, right? But as you're climbing the ranks through a hospital or health system, I'll put a little asterisk here. It's changing, and that's only been changing in the last maybe 3 to 4 years. But as you're climbing those ranks through the hospital or health system, it gets less and less. We also see that there's less clinicians in some of those C-suite positions within hospital or within those health systems. And that is, changing as well. But before, that was really hurtful to the nursing profession, because you didn't, other than a chief nursing officer or a chief medical officer, so your chief medical officers are physicians who are guiding the practice of the physicians, and then your chief nursing officers were over all of the nursing operations. And so you kind of had those two who would be have a voice, but you're outnumbered, right? You have a bigger, your boards are usually don't have a lot of clinicians on them. And so that really impacted that leadership of especially women in nursing, right? Or women in those leadership positions, because it really was only one, which was a CNO position. So if you look at how big a hospital is and how many nurses are in a hospital, most of them are women. There wasn't a lot of opportunity to get up to those higher level positions. And so that was a little bit daunting as you're wanting to be a leader and you're wanting to make change. Is how do I get there? Someone either had to retire or pass away, and you didn't want to wish that on anyone, right? So you're how do I get there and how do I get my voice heard, which was really important.
I'm a technology strategist, and what that means is I sit with businesses, I try to understand where they want to go, how they want to get there, and figure out how we use technology to get the business there. So my role is actually very simple. It sounds complicated, but it's very simple. I really believe that you have to find your purpose in technology. And no matter what you do, and this could be true for every function, technology, accounting, whatever have you, right? You have to find your purpose. And that can be hard today in technology because there's so many different things you can do. There's software delivery, cybersecurity, there's virtual reality, there's IoT. I mean, the options are endless.
I'm Dr. Kimberly Long. I am the current Chief Executive Officer for the Association of California Nurse Leaders and a nurse of 37 years. Once I got into nursing, I found that that love for people could be translated to providing an optimal patient care experience with compassion, recognizing that people don't go in the hospital because they want to spend a weekend in hospital land. They go there because something catastrophic has happened to them. When I go into an organization, the first thing that I do, whether it's as a CNO or a CEO, is sit in the lobby before they know who I am and observe. Because I want to see what that organization is really about. How do people engage with one another? Do they talk to each other? Do they
This is an important topic. And I look at even the household you just described that you're in. And I'm sure you're the primary caregiver of that household. If your husband had to make all the care decisions and you only had a 20% input on that, how do you think your healthcare outcomes would be?
That's a good point, right? Yeah, I'm lucky that my current husband now is able to. We've had those conversations, right? But it is a thing, right? He works in construction management and and procurement. He doesn't have a healthcare background, right? So if I told him I need you to make the healthcare decisions, he would be like, I have no idea what you want me to do. I don't know what those words mean. I don't understand like what these things are. He's very educated and he could pick up on it. And thank goodness for the internet now. But it does impact. And so you can see how as a health system that could really be impactful of how nurses and physicians work when other people are making those decisions without the input of them at the table.
So important. And that's why from a technology lens, we have seen projects either fail or they're wildly successful because you have all the key stakeholders at the table. I've seen so many tech where you have a group of people, they bring it together like, we're going to solve this big problem. And on paper, and it sounds great, and the technology works, and then you get it out in the field, and it fails miserably because you did not bring the primary key stakeholders, the people that are doing the blocking and the tackling. Can you imagine? I always use sports analogy because I like sports, right? Right? Where you've got the GM of a let's say a football team. We're in football season, right? And the coaching staff, they all know. Oh yeah, you know what? That's a great play, right? That's wonderful. But they never share it with the players. They never share it. And by the time you share it with the players, they got to learn it within a week. You've been working on this for maybe a year. And they're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Go out there and implement it. You're like, what? Wait a minute. And remember what we said earlier, these are critical situations. One misstep and a person can experience either a positive outcome or a medical error. This is important to bring all the stakeholders together.
Yeah.
You're also part of HIMSS, and you talked about the HIMSS, Health Informatics Systems Society. You're a mentor for them. You understand not only the clinical view, but the technical view.
Mm-hmm.
So you, as what I would call a key stakeholder, first talk to us about your role at HIMSS, why you are doing that, why you think it's important, and then talk to us about how you're using this platform for leadership.
Sure. So HIMSS is important to me because it allows me. So I have my nursing informatics degree so that I could understand technology better. When I first got that degree, I was like, where's that professional organization, right? So there's ANNI, which is American Nursing Informatics Association, but I really wanted a bigger reach. I wanted to be able to understand how it all works together. So I found HIMSS when I was working at an EHR company, and they sent me to that organization, and I fell in love with the ideas of how they all want to work together. I know you've probably been to some of their conferences, right? Like that floor is insane to be able to walk through and see what's going on, but then be able to ask those very hard questions to them of like, okay, so how was this created? Who was at the table? How does it now talk to, from a hospital to a post-acute system, right? Because, not all patients go home. They go to some post-acute care. And then you can really start to understand where this comes from and how it impacts. HIMSS is great about making sure, though, that they are doing the right thing, not only for the technology vendors who are part of that association and how they're wanting to get their message out, but also for us as members, for our growth, for our leadership, to give us a little bit more of that edge of understanding what's coming, where we've been, where we're going, and what's upcoming, right? And I really like that. And being a leader in my organization now and within HIMSS, it really does help me then to bring in a different point of view, right? I was a nurse. I was a practicing nurse, still a practicing nurse, all the way through all of this. And now how do I guide the next wave, right? How do I guide this next wave of people who are going to come in? Because I'm not going to work forever. I'm going to retire. And, how do we carry on that mission for nursing and for providers to be able to use undisparate systems, right? Like being able to use integrated systems to actually help us. And then how do we eloquently speak about it? How do we get in front of executives who sometimes don't want to listen to that? They don't understand it. We need to speak their language, just like we wouldn't ask, a information systems like an IT person at a hospital to run a code in the ER, right? It's the same thing. We have to come to this middle ground and that understanding. So using HIMSS and using that platform, using the clinical background, we're able to then blend that and have these really meaningful conversations of what needs to happen within this technology so that it will work. We don't want people to use technology, especially nurses and doctors, and then create a workaround, right? Because workarounds, we all know, we do them as clinicians because if it's not created the right way, we're going to do a workaround. And that's when patient harm happens. And we need to make sure that we're not doing that.
So important what you just said. You've got to have the right stakeholders at the table at the inception of the idea, right?
Yeah.
And then understanding all the different factors is very, very important. As you look at from the leadership lens, and we talked about this a little earlier, that there is a disparity of women in leadership roles at some of the higher levels where these decisions are truly made. what can we do? Because this is going to be some of our conversation that we're going to have in February, right? At Nova Southeast University for HIMSS. Let's talk about these things because we've got to move the needle forward. Some will say, well, it's experience. We just don't have the experience. We don't have the exposure. You're not understanding all the different factors of the business. Remember the business of healthcare, the finance. You might know the operational, but you're not familiar with the finance. You don't understand the culture and the relationships. And relationships are so important. A lot of people might have the same, technical acumen, let's just say. They may understand operationally how certain healthcare situations operate and move, but do you have the relationships to truly impact change? Talk to us about what you feel from your lens can move the needle.
I'm going to be a little vulnerable here for a second and say I was a night shift nurse for 15 years. I was a charge nurse in emergency department. I worked my way up to the highest level I could on nights. But I had to work night shift because I was I was the breadwinner for my family, right? I had daughters I was raising. I was trying to keep food on the table. And I was constantly in my heart driving to be a better leader, driving that growth, wanting to be at a higher level to have that voice. But working nights, constantly overlooked, right? And it really hit me one day where I was like, if you really want a strong leader and you really want somebody who understands how to operate this ER or this hospital without any outside influence, you got to go to your night shift, right? Because they're the ones who are really like looking at, a hospital that's running on a skeleton crew. There's not administration walking around telling them how things need to be done. Things get done, right? And they're actually like really strong willed people, right? Number one, be able to stay up all night, but also they're strong willed. They're there for a reason. Not everybody wants to work nights, right? But they're there for a reason. And so as I grew the ranks, I started like saying to people like, who can we start that succession planning from night shift, right? Because I think they are overlooked. When you're working during the day, administration walks around, they know everyone's name during the day. You bring them on night shift, and half the time they don't even know, the housekeeper from the charge nurse, right? Because they're just like, we don't deal with night shift. And so that was really like one of the things I started changing when I became a director in the emergency department is how do I really look at people across all shifts, across all divisions? Because when you kind of like peg hole yourself into that and only wanting certain people with certain education, certain people with certain degrees, certain certifications, you're really starting to block out that experience that they bring in, right? I always say like, we're subject matter experts in our field. And so when you're sitting there looking for somebody who can carry all of these types of like subject matter expertise, right? Like I shouldn't have to be an expert in finance, right? Because we have a CFO that can do that. We have a whole division who can do that. And I shouldn't have to be an expert in marketing because I'm not a marketer. But I do understand it, right? I've worked with them. I've been able to like understand what they're doing, but do they understand the clinical side of it, right? Like it is a lot of give and take. And that's what we have to start changing is we can't expect somebody to be a subject matter expert in everything just so that they can get a leadership title. That's not what we're here to do, right? Like some people are born leaders, they could become great leaders, and I think that we have to look at that and say, we can always teach them what we need them to know. But if they have a knack to be able to lead and get people to do things in very like hard and difficult times, and they can create calm out of chaos, they're a leader. And then that's how we really start making that change and not expecting everybody to know everything from the beginning.
Love how you said that. Not letting those things become a barrier. Let's widen the lens, especially today when there is such a workforce shortage. You can't afford to only look at half the team that's out there, right? You can look at all of them and understand their capabilities. And as you said, who can we teach to actually expand their role? Because they got to get better. And there's always a succession, as you just stated. We're not always going to be here. We're all moving on, right? So who are we teaching? How do we get the bench filled? You're a mentor at him because you're helping. Like, hey, I understand there's someone out there that's getting into this profession that you can only get so much from what you call book knowledge.
Right.
When you hit the floor, as you said, you hit the floor. You're like, give me that book. You throw it on the floor like that. That's not going to get it done. You have a general idea is what you have, but you don't have a skill set. And that comes from experience. It comes from exposure and expanding your reach. I want you to talk to us like why you want to be a part of this Women in IT event that we're going to have in February. And who do you think should be there? And what do you think they're going to get out of this?
I want to be a part of this, number one, because I love having a voice for my profession and for clinicians across the whole country, right? But especially here in Florida. And, I love being able to have that voice. I love being able to speak truthfully and say how things are without fear of, any type of, repercussions, right? Because I want to make sure that people understand what's really going on, right? I don't want to sugarcoat anything. And I want people to be able to hear that story. And I want people to be able to say and walk away and be like, you know what? Even if I change one thing about how I'm running my business, setting up my technology solution, or working within a health system or working within the healthcare field, if I've changed one thought process or one thing, that is a huge win for me. And that's what I'm out here doing, right? And so being at this event and being able to talk to other women or other people who are employing women within their services or within their line of business, I want to make sure that I'm that voice. I want to make sure that they understand that, there is opportunities there. And then for the clinical providers, that there's ways that we can impact our profession, not only working at the bedside and taking care of patients, but from a bigger lens, how do we impact our profession and have that voice? And so that's really why I'm excited to be here. I'm really excited to be talking with you today, being able to be there, because the more people hear what's going on and they understand, the more that we're going to be able to make that change. And that's really important for me.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I want to thank you again. That you're going to be on our panel for HIMSS. I'm the program chair for the HIMSS chapter. We're a goal-winning chapter. And this is why we are a winning chapter, because we bring talent like Jodi Long, the voice. We need to bring these things out so you're not just in your circle. I'm sure everyone knows Jodi, right? But we want to expand your reach because it's important for people to hear these stories, because this is how we get better. We cannot just succumb to the status quo. We've got to make change, an impactful change, a better change, a more positive outlook. Let the audience know how to get in contact with you, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, I was on the night shift. I know exactly what she's talking about. I don't want to be overlooked. I want to get my voice out there because I know a lot of different things. Tell us how to contact you.
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So anyone can go to my LinkedIn profile. It's very easy. It's just Jodi Long with my, all of my certifications behind it, because nurses love putting our initials behind everything. And so it's Jodi Long on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. I do respond to messages. And then I have my email address. I can give it here or we can put it up afterwards, but at work, people can contact me. I love being able to talk with people and just work through problems. Like if they just have a question, I'm able to assist, I will, or I'll get you in contact with the right person too.
Well, this has been wonderful. I want to thank you again for being on the show. I want to invite your entire audience to view all the different episodes on Follow Brand. You can do so at 5, that's the number 5, starbdm.com. There is a library of information there for you to improve, to listen to leaders like Jodi Long. So you're like, oh, wow, Grant, I just listened to Jodi. I'm ready for 2025. So many other people that are there. So continue to tune in to the Follow Brand podcast on 5-Star BDM. This has been wonderful. Thank you again.
Man, who's your favorite podcaster? Man, Grant, man. I love Grant's podcast. Well, who's Grant? I'm going to send you the link. I love Grant.
I love the interview. I've done a lot of these, and this is a great one. It's always great to talk to people who know what they're doing, and it's clear you're a great host, and you've done this many times before.
I feel great that we're having this conversation here. Met a new person in business who I previously didn't know.
It was an amazing podcast. Grant is an amazing interviewer. I learned a lot.
I really enjoyed this. Great questions, great talk track. Super appreciate you having me on. It's been a very fun episode to talk about a lot of things that I don't always get to dive into. So this has been a fantastic conversation.
I wouldn't be where I am here today, of course, not on this stage, however, not in my current business projection and my current business model without working with you.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
The Black Business Expo's mission is to raise funds for high school seniors going to college or K through 12 entrepreneurs. This expo is a fundraiser for students. Please, you may go to www.blackbusinessexpousa.com to donate to the scholarship fund or use the Cash App at $BBXUSA. Our goal is to give laptops and up to $5,000 to 10 students. Students can register online at www.blackbusinessexpousa.com. Every dollar counts. Please donate to the Black Business Expo USA Scholarship Fund.
A lot of people say the future is artificial intelligence, right? But I say the future is not artificial intelligence. The future is quantum artificial immuno-oncologist by training, turned futurist, and now working in the venture capital area.
I tell people, use AI and technology to your advantage. Use it as a resource and as a tool. And I don't have to tell you because I know that you do that on a large scale. I know so many other entrepreneurs who are doing that on such a large scale right now, right? And they're feeling the benefits of using these tools in the right capacity in the right way. And so it's exciting, but some of the world gets a little bit of angst about it. And so I'm like, okay, let me just give you a brain hack right now.
exciting time to be in digital marketing with the advent, the explosion of generative AI chatbots. They're better known as ChatGPT. There's Bard, there's Claude, there's all kinds of this new one came out called Gemini. There's so many different tools that really what it comes down to is that it's made my business more precise. I can do things more quicker, I would say, and to elevate my brand messaging to a level that allows me to be as creative as possible. Digital market economy is taking the world by storm, probably over the last decade or so, but is really escalating now in the advent of AI because it is a game changer for a lot of businesses. It's not just all the big boys that can play in this space because of cloud computing, because of mobile computing, and now you have these tools at your disposal. You've got a laptop, you've got a computer, you can now digitize yourself to a level and get your message out there, and that equates to business.
Exposed to all of the cybersecurity domains and that culture and protecting information and data long before cybersecurity was actually, like I said, an industry, and worked technical operations, exploited technical devices, worked in a field in counterterrorism. And then I did that for about a decade and decided I was tired of that life. And I got out and was able to then transfer my skills as an intelligence officer into cybersecurity, which was an emerging industry at the time that I got out. Bridging the gap for that divide that's there by providing the pathways in cybersecurity and education. Like, we are very focused on programming and the type of educational outreach that we can provide to our women so that they're educated and they know the industry that they're getting into.
I was able to speak with over 1,000 patients from all race and ethnicities. And I came to the concept of recognizing that solutions are simple, and if we solve the simple, it doesn't have to escalate to the complex. after hearing the presentation of Dr. Beverly, will it change the way you engage patients? And 90+% said yes.
Infection control and nursing for over 30 years. It is truly my passion. I love being able to see people who are in need go into a facility and get quality care, have quality outcomes, and don't leave with anything they didn't come in with. Infection control experts is really about having the ability to partner with facilities, partner with organizations who may not have the resources to be able to make sure their residents or patients, depending on the setting, get the best care that they have. What we're finding a lot of times is a lot of people are wearing many different hats, and staffing is hard right now. And COVID did a whopper on all of healthcare, and everyone is hurting. So I come in, and our organization, we're here to be that support system for them, to provide that extra pair of hands, the innovation that they need for efficiencies, things that are going to make the difference in what happens. And we don't come in when the surveyors come in. What differentiates us is we're their partner. So when you get us, but we're helping you proactively monitor, proactively engage, proactively look at real-time information so that we can make the difference ahead of time.
Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, is turning heads in the healthcare and information technology sectors with his groundbreaking approach to personal branding and business development. By challenging conventional strategies, he's setting a new standard for how executives present themselves and their businesses to the world. McGaw's expertise isn't just about standing out. It's about strategic guidance, generating leads, and building networks that propel executives beyond their competition. His focus on authenticity allows leaders to leverage their unique stories, driving exponential growth and success in their industries. Beyond branding, McGaw is a fervent advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. He's committed to helping organizations cultivate environments where innovation and collaboration thrive through inclusive cultures. And for those eager to dive deeper, McGaw hosts the Follow the Brand podcast. Here, he unpacks the intricacies of personal branding and business growth, offering valuable insights for professionals eager to redefine their identities and share their narratives with the world.
Tune in for our next show or click on our website at www.5starbdm/followthebrandtv. Thank you.